The tension inside the British royal family has reached a point where even the quietest corners of the palace feel like they're holding their breath. According to sources close to the situation, Prince William has placed Queen Camilla in a position she has never truly faced before. Not a conversation, not a back-and-forth discussion, but a direct and unmistakable ultimatum that leaves only two possible paths forward. Step away from the institution with what dignity remains, or stay and face a fully documented, carefully assembled version of events that William has reportedly spent years preparing. And right now, the entire monarchy feels like it is waiting for the consequences of that decision. What makes this moment so intense in royal family news is not just the choice itself, but what it represents. Queen Camilla is not a new figure in the royal system. Her entire adult life has been shaped by the slow climb toward acceptance inside the monarchy, through decades of public scrutiny, controversy, and eventually rehabilitation into a senior royal role as the wife of King Charles III. But Prince William, now positioned as the future of the British monarchy, is said to view things through a very different lens. And according to insiders, he is not interested in symbolic compromise or quiet coexistence. He is focused on structure, accountability, and what he sees as correcting the historical record of the institution he is preparing to inherit. That is where this royal family tension between Prince William and Queen Camilla begins to escalate into something far more significant than internal disagreement. Sources describe William's message as clear and final. Camilla could leave on her own terms, allowing the palace to manage the transition smoothly, or she could remain in place and face what William allegedly holds in reserve. That includes documented material, historical records, and accounts tied to the most sensitive periods of royal history involving King Charles and Princess Diana. No public confrontation was needed. No official statement was released. Instead, the pressure was applied quietly in a way that only the inner circle of the monarchy would fully understand. And Camilla has reportedly been sitting with that reality ever since. To understand why this moment carries so much weight in UK monarchy discussions, you have to understand what Camilla is actually being asked to walk away from. This is not just about status. It is about identity, position, and the culmination of decades spent moving from a deeply controversial public figure into Queen Consort and now Queen Camilla, a title that symbolizes full acceptance within the institution. For many years, King Charles carefully built that pathway. Every stage of Camilla's public rehabilitation was gradual, deliberate, and supported by the structure of the monarchy itself. From carefully managed public appearances to charitable patronages and eventually to formal recognition, Camilla's role inside the royal family was constructed piece by piece. But according to insiders, Prince William does not view that journey in isolation. Instead, he sees the broader historical context, particularly the legacy of Princess Diana, as central to how the monarchy should be understood moving forward. And that is where the conflict becomes deeply personal, even if it is being handled through institutional channels rather than open confrontation. Camilla, now in her late 70s, has spent decades navigating public perception. From the early years of intense scrutiny to the gradual shift in public acceptance, her position inside the monarchy has always been something carefully balanced between public image and private reality. Now, she is being asked to consider whether that entire structure can remain intact under a future reign led by Prince William. And that question carries enormous emotional and political weight inside the palace. Sources say that after receiving William's ultimatum, Camilla entered a period of private consultation. Her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, along with a very small circle of trusted advisors, were reportedly brought into the discussion. Inside those conversations, the stakes were not simple. Leaving would mean stepping away from the formal role she had fought decades to achieve. Remaining would mean preparing for a confrontation with a version of the royal narrative that has never been fully tested in public. Because what William is said to be holding is not just opinion or interpretation. It is described by insiders as a structured historical record built from multiple sources over time, including accounts, documents, and testimonies tied to the most sensitive chapters of royal history involving the late Princess Diana and the marriage dynamics of King Charles. Whether or not this material would ever be fully released is not confirmed. But the existence of it as leverage has reportedly shifted the atmosphere inside the royal household. And that alone is enough to change everything. During the weeks following the ultimatum, the royal institution itself reportedly entered a quiet but highly attentive state. Not public drama, not media chaos, but internal recalibration. Every appearance, every decision, every movement from Queen Camilla was being observed through a very specific lens. Was she preparing to step away or preparing to resist? At the same time, Camilla is said to to have explored limited communication channels through intermediaries. Not direct confrontation with William, but carefully filtered messaging through trusted royal advisors and long-standing media contacts. Those conversations reportedly focused on three key areas: the protection of King Charles's legacy, the potential public impact on her children, and the need for time. Time, above all, became the central request. More time before any final decision. More time before any formal transition. More time to understand how the situation could unfold without immediate and irreversible consequences. According to sources, William's response was firm but controlled. He did not offer unlimited delay. Instead, he reportedly provided a defined window, a period in which Camilla could decide, prepare, and choose her path, but not indefinitely postpone the outcome. On the matter of King Charles, William is said to have been measured. No guarantees about public reaction, no promises about controlling narratives, but acknowledgement that his father's position would be considered with institutional care. On Camilla's children, the response was reportedly clearer. They were not part of the institutional conflict and would not be targeted within any public-facing developments, but the timeline remained non-negotiable, and that is what ultimately defines this entire moment in royal family news. Because when the decision finally came, it was not announced in dramatic fashion. There was no public statement from Buckingham Palace, no formal declaration, no immediate visible shift in roles. Instead, according to sources, Camilla chose to remain, not as a declaration of victory, not as a challenge to Prince William, but as a refusal to step away from a position she has spent most of her life building toward, even under pressure that insiders describe as unprecedented within the modern royal system. However, this decision does not close the situation. It simply changes its form, because staying means that the next phase will unfold while she is still inside the institution, still holding the title of Queen Camilla, still part of the working structure of the monarchy under King Charles. And that introduces a far more complicated dynamic. Prince William is not expected to retreat from his position. Those close to the future king describe him as methodical, strategic, and already thinking several steps ahead. The ultimatum was not an emotional reaction, according to insiders. It was part of a longer process of defining what the monarchy should look like under his eventual reign. And now that Camilla has chosen to remain, the situation becomes one of timing rather than avoidance. What happens next is not a question of if, but when. There are already discussions inside royal circles about what Camilla's long-term role will look like once William becomes king. Titles, residences, patronages, and informal influence are all part of that calculation. For now, Queen Camilla retains her position alongside King Charles. She continues her public duties, her charitable work, and her role within the royal framework. But behind the scenes, the broader transition of power within the monarchy is continuing to move forward. Prince William and Princess Catherine are increasingly seen as the central future of the British royal family. Their influence is growing, their public support remains strong, and their vision for a modern monarchy is becoming more defined with each passing year. In that context, Camilla's decision to stay is not the end of a chapter. It is the extension of a very delicate one, and in royal family news terms, extensions often carry more tension than conclusions. Because now everything depends on what William chooses to do next. Whether he escalates, recalibrates, or waits for a more strategic moment, one thing is clear from insiders. Nothing about this situation is resolved, and the monarchy is now operating inside a period of quiet but very real transformation. Camilla made her decision, but the consequences of that decision are still unfolding, and the royal world is watching closely.